there is only one thing you need to learn and understand about Magna Carta 1215, it's this. Magna Carta 1215 is the sole peaceful means known to humankind by which the rights of the weakest, most innocent citizens can prevail over a massive, potentially corrupt and oppressive state power. This is the voice of freedom, Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre. Welcome to your next lesson with hosts Fitzroy and Carl. Well, running a bit late, but welcome to the show. Hope you're looking forward to lesson number 5 in our Magna Carta season. Fitzroy Sterling joining me again this evening. Bring him in, Fitz. Yes, the internet devils have been upon us in the last little while, but anyway, we're here. Yeah,
it was a bit hectic, so we got here now, so that's what really matters.
How's your week been,
yeah, a bit hectic as well. So just seems to be one thing after another. But anyway, the main thing is we made it, and I'm keen to get cracking. So whenever you're ready, my friend, let's
get into the first slide. Here we go. Let me just stop my camera. So, okay, authority. Can I read this for you?
Yeah, go for it.
Comes from the invention of jurisdiction, derived from the Latin noun jus, or juris, meaning law, and the Latin verb dictere, to speak or to say. Thus, jurisdiction literally means to say what the law is. The word jurisdiction creates the idea there are superior and inferior beings, where the superior possesses divine knowledge or possesses divine knowledge, the inferior do not. Hence, the superior have the right to behave like gods and say what is law and what is not. And because the superior speak laws, the inferior are under the spoken control of the superior. I probably should have pre-read that, Fitz.
Well, it's like learning as you go, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that is pretty much an extension of what we were talking about last week, about how government just grants itself this divine authority to pretty much intrude on every aspect of your life. And this is how it's done. It's done through these mind tricks like jurisdiction. So it's just really important, I guess, that people can see the real intricacies of how it's done and how the mind programming happens, and how a lot of it's done through language to actually get your mind in that spell, where they're casting a spell on you, because they're giving you ideas and they're creating them as actual realities. And which, as we get further on, when we get into the actual definition of government, that'll hopefully make a bit more sense.
Yep, sure. On to the next one then.
Yep. Did you want to read it as well?
Okay. Authority is an illusion of a diseased mind based entirely on violence and built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that some people are masters who possess divine right to issue commands, and others are slaves who have divine duty, that's being the obligation to obey the masters.
So so that's hopefully pretty self-explanatory. It's basically a state of mind, because in nature, there's no such thing as masters and slaves. You can't find them. So you need to create the conditions that it actually is a reality through the mind trick. So that's the sort of essence of what I'm trying to get people to understand, how this is all a mind trick, that you cannot find these things in nature. And that's pretty much the essence of how it's done. And as we go further along, as I said, it'll hopefully become more and more prevalent, more obvious, should I say.
Right.
Got one more on authority, yep. You can go for any time you like, my friend.
Authority is the belief in the legitimacy of authority. It's the belief in the legitimacy and advocation of slavery. Ultimately, authority is the idea that man can become God and, through jurisdiction, dictate the law. Yeah,
so there's no such thing as anyone having, like we discussed last week, that if I don't have authority over any other individual, as we are, just if there was just two of us on the planet, no one else, well, then it can't be delegated out into a group of people. It doesn't exist, right? So if it doesn't exist between each individual, it can't exist between a group of individuals and one individual. So that's the only way it can exist, is if you start believing it exists. And this is the programming that's been done to us for thousands of years, that's got us to believe that it exists. That's the curtain, right? That's the veil that they've created through the mental realm. And this is just an explanation of what authority truly means, that it's not something you can find in nature. And if you can't find it in nature, it's not a science, it's not discoverable. And if it's not discoverable, then it's a belief. And that's
What
where
about
all the...
those people who say the lion is the king of the jungle? Everything in the jungle is submitted to the lion.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because we are going to cover that later if we get time, because there is so much content. But in case we don't, what I will do is I'll say there's a conflation between the natural world, so how they operate, like animals and insects and etc., because they don't have a conscience. Yet that's not the same as the natural law, because natural law applies to beings with a conscience. So they're two different sets of rules, if you want to look at it that way. So if we have a conscience, then there's a different set because we've got that spiritual access to the spiritual world, but they don't. So they don't have guilt. When a lion kills another animal, it doesn't carry on and feel any guilt, because if it did, it wouldn't kill any other animals and it wouldn't survive. So it's different with us. We have no need to kill each other. That's not an actual essential part of our survival. So we have a conscience for that reason, so we know that we're not here to do that. We're actually here to advance each other because we have a spirit. So we're here to advance each other's lives, because what we do here impacts the spiritual world or our soul, right? So what actions we take here will penetrate into our soul, in our soul's journey. So that's why we have a conscience, to understand the difference between that which is going to contribute to each other's well-being and that which is going to take from one another's well-being. So I hope that sort of helps explain it. But if we do get time, there'll be more on that later.
Okay, beautiful. Next one. Religion, from the Latin verb, religare, is, I think that's how you might say that in Latin.
Yeah, that'll do.
I've never learned Latin. It means to hold back, to thwart from forward progress, or to bind. A system of control based in unchallenged dogmatic belief, which holds back the progress of consciousness.
So this is going to be a little bit confronting, this content. There's probably people out there that are going to really struggle with how this is going to come across. So if that's you, look, I totally get it. Not sure how you're going to navigate around this. However, it is really, really pivotal stuff to understand the actual intention behind religion. Now, the intention behind religion is to stop us from believing, or like not so much believing, but really accessing our conscience and really learning how to expand it and grow it. Its purpose is to get you to believe there's an authority outside of you that is valid and legitimate. Therefore, you don't take responsibility for your actions that way. And that's how they can get you to do the most unbearable and unbelievable things to one another, because you're not responsible for your own actions if there's an external authority outside of you. That's the purpose of religion. It's to get you to separate yourself from your own responsibility. I know it doesn't sound like it on the surface, because a lot of people are going to say, actually, no, it's not. But really, if you dig into the heart of it, once you create an authority that exists outside of you, right, there's some supernatural being that you're sort of, that you're, what's the word I'm looking for here, that you're sort of subservient to, that knows better than you, then you're never going to be good enough. Do you know what I mean? It gets you sort of believing in that you've got to spend your life trying to prove yourself as being worthy. Well, then there's no spiritual growth there, right? That's all collapsing the conscience. That's narrowing down your understanding of who you truly are and your divine capacity. And that's the purpose of religion. And hopefully that next slide that's coming is going to possibly, either help people, or they might actually find a bit of a struggle. Oh, here we go. So here's the false trinity, the religious trinity of false religions. Because all these three religions, they are religions. That's the thing, because they're based on dogmatic belief. You cannot discover any of these things in nature. You can't find organized religion in nature. That has to be something that's put into your mind. Now, you can't find money in nature, right? That's something that was created. And government doesn't exist in nature. So they're all constructs, but they're all a dogmatic belief. So that's what they have in common. They're the three biggest religions on the planet. There's no three bigger. And you think about how many people, if you were to ask them about money, like how they're going to live without it, they would struggle. They wouldn't be able to have an answer for you. Like, well, how'd you do it without money? What would you do? Like, see how lost they are? And same thing with government. Like, well, who's going to organize things? How are we going to do things, if we don't have someone that takes care of that? So their brains can't actually stretch past that. That's how how good of a job that mind control program has been going for centuries, that people cannot conceive a life outside of that. They're just incapable. And so what do? They give up their authority to these false religions. So I'm hoping that sort of gives a little bit of clarity. Possibly not. This might be a whole subject on its own.
Well, that's all right. We can always come back and make another episode. Now, I've got to share my screen for this next bit, so give me a second here. Hit that. Share.
So we're going to do the government memes, just some few funny memes, but they also have. Is that what we're up to? The government memes?
Yeah.
On the is it on that site? The Status Slayers.
It must be, yes.
Yep. So if you can get that webpage up, there's a bunch of funny little memes on there.
So you're not seeing that?
No, I'm not seeing. I've only got the False Religion Trinity up here. So if it does come up, there'll be some really good memes that actually, as much as they're funny, they actually got a lot of truth in it too. So that's what I'm hoping.
Take that off for a second. And this
is all learning on the job tonight, guys.
I am. So you're not seeing that?
No, it's just the icon, the sea icon, and the surfboard. That's all that's coming up at the moment. If you get stuck, we can just leave that and we can just go to the next slide. Oh, something's coming up. Here we go. So yeah, if you scroll your way down, there's some really good ones.
I particularly like that one.
It's like I said, it's going to be a bit confronting for people.
Yeah, pour bleach on the food donated to the homeless, and there's the government doing just that. Beautiful. This is very good too. The basic belief that an elected government must rule your life is a religion of the utmost insanity.
Yeah, that's Chris Lyspino. There's a lot of great content this guy's come out with, so I definitely recommend reading into his stuff.
Anarchy is no guarantee that some people won't kill, injure, kidnap, defraud, or steal from others. Government is a guarantee that some will. Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, there's some really good ones, guys. It's really worth your while looking at these.
The real question of government versus private enterprise is argued on too philosophical and abstract a basis. Theoretically, planning may be good, but nobody has ever figured out the cause of government stupidity. And until they do and find a cure, all ideal plans will fall into quicksand.
Yep.
Richard Feynman.
Yep.
Government, the brilliant idea that we should stop lunatics from lying, murdering, and stealing from us by hiring lunatics to lie, murder, and steal from us. Doesn't that ring true in our lives? Yeah. Everything you get from the government was stolen from someone else. I don't know how many times a day I wind up with people trying to educate them. The government doesn't make money; it only has what it takes from us.
Yes,
correct. And people find that a very difficult concept to understand. And if they haven't stolen it from us, they've gone off and printed it themselves.
Yes, they don't create anything of value. No.
No. Suggesting people can't live without government is like saying animals couldn't survive without farms. Very good point. Very good point. All governments suffer a recurring problem. Power attracts pathological personalities. It is not that power corrupts, but it is magnetic to the corruptible.
Yeah, so this is what we were talking about last time, because there was no actual structure in place that makes them accountable. So if there's no accountability structure, then you are going to, just by way of how things are, attract those who are easily to corrupt or already in that process of already being well corrupted. Yeah.
And Farmer Mike, who's in the chat, don't worry, we're not having a go at you, mate. It's all good.
This is my favorite. I love this one.
Oh, were you having a nice day? Here, have some government.
So yeah, that's to me, this is the pinnacle of exactly what government is right there. And this is one of my favorite ones I've ever seen.
That is truly spectacular.
I just wanted to share that one with you guys. But yeah, we can go back into the slides if
Roger that.
If the technology allows us.
Let's get back into slides.
So the next one after this one, get that one up
False
as well.
Religion, we've done that one.
Yep, so we can go to the next one.
All right, there we go. Natural law. The general principle of natural law.
Just want to read the first one, Carl. All the rest I don't want to get into, so just the first one.
The principle of mentalism.
Yes. So what that means is that before anything can be created by us beings, with a thought process and a conscience, we need to have conceived it in our mind first. Nothing can be created, like anything that doesn't exist in nature as it is right now, as we find it, needs to be created by us. Before it can be created by us into the physical realm, we need to have conceived it in our minds. So I just wanted to just sort of nail that one in so people can get that.
This is very much in line with the visualization techniques that many self-help organizations push.
Yes, absolutely.
They run off that. What you want to achieve, and
yes,
and you shall achieve it.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of how that works. So people who really excel in these sort of fields, they understand this principle really well.
Okay, let's get into the next one. Government, from the Latin verb governar, to control, and the Latin noun mens, meaning mind. So to control the mind, or mind control. So
this ties back to what we started with the authority. Now, how this works is, gubernare, that's obviously the Latin way to mean control, and mens, it means mind. Yet the English suffix is ment, but it's the same thing, right? They've just taken the people who created the English language, and it happened over centuries. They took from the Latin mens and made it ment. And what they really wanted you to understand is that anything with the word ment in it doesn't exist in nature. It only was brought into reality through the understanding of the mind, right? So if you go back into this word government, they were telling us already that first we need to control your mind before we can control your reality and what's in your reality. So they actually came out and told us that we're going to control your reality by controlling your mind first. Yeah. That's why I really need people to understand that. That word is just screaming out in our faces about what they've come to do to us and how they're doing it. They need to subvert our consciousness through the mental realm. And then once they do that, we will be willing participants in manifesting into reality. Yeah. That's what that's saying to you. So there's some ment words that I made a list of, just so people can really get a grasp of how many things they probably never considered before. Did you want to read through them, Carl?
Absolutely. So the ment words: government, department, parliament, excrement.
You like that on the same line? Did you like that?
I do.
All on the same line.
Impeachment, argument, punishment, detainment, enslavement, establishment, harassment, incitement, arrangement or arraignment, employment, enrollment, retirement, judgment, entertainment, environment, treatment, agreement, management, amendment, excitement. Fitz, just explain again what all these ment words mean.
So all these words, right, what they're telling you is you cannot find them in nature. You cannot find establishment in nature. You cannot find harassment in nature. This has to have existed in your mind first. It has to be conceived in the mind before there can ever be any of those things. And you think about enslavement, right? That doesn't exist in nature. You won't find it. So it had to be conceived in the mind to be actioned into reality. That makes sense? So entertainment, for example, right? You can't find entertainment. That's a state of mind, but it doesn't actually exist in nature as it is, as a universally discoverable thing. You know, like something that's entertaining to me won't be entertaining to someone else. You know, an animal won't be entertained by something that I'm entertained with. You know what I mean? It's not universal.
True.
So that's kind of what that's saying. Like cement, for example, right?
Would a didgeridoo qualify as a natural instrument?
Well, it was created in the mind first. Someone needed to conceive it before they could have. You couldn't find it in. So when I say natural, I mean it's just not there of its own volition, right? It's just not part of nature.
Blowing it before somebody found it to blow in, so to speak.
Yeah, so they would have worked out, like, if I hollow this out and I blow into it, you know what I mean? But it didn't just exist as it is, right? So sitting there until someone puts their mouth on it and puts in some effort, they didn't know it's an instrument, right? So that's what we do with it. So we apply some kind of force to create something, but it of its own, on itself, at rest, it's not anything other than what it is actually. You know, it could have been a hollow piece of wood just sitting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're the ones who looked at it and made something of it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it had to come from an idea in the mind first.
Entrapment, equipment, tournament, measurement, enlightenment, comment, statement, appointment, payment, shipment. Shipment means a lot of things. Arrangement, announcement, advertisement, improvement, reinforcement, and I've got a banner running across the bottom there.
So I just put a list of them out there. If you guys are interested, right, just do a Google search. You'll be amazed how many words got meant in it that you never even thought about. So just to give you an idea that these all don't exist in nature, they had to be conceived in the mind. So I just wanted to give people an understanding of how many of those things exist that we don't even think about, and we just think are natural.
The law of freedom. Freedom and mortality are directly proportional. As mortality increases, freedom increases. As mortality, or morality, I beg your pardon, declines, freedom declines. So as morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. True freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism. That's the idea that there is no inherent and objective difference between right and wrong. So humanity may be arbitrarily or create or decide right and wrong for themselves.
Yeah, so morality is basically another way to explain that there is a universal truth that is always there, no matter what we believe, and because it's universally discoverable, and it always functions the same. That's pretty much what it is. You either accept that that's beyond your control and exists, or you say no, it doesn't, and we as a species get to decide what becomes true. And that's the purpose of government. Government is that. It's there to decide what is true, because there's no such thing as a universally discoverable truth. That's the mind control trick that's been played on us.
Yes.
And so anyone who believes in moral relativism, right, they are the ones who you can control easily. And that's the bulk of the population, because they don't understand that there's only one singular, solitary, universal truth. And that is to do with the laws of nature. Everything else is a mind construct. And because most people don't understand that, they can be led into doing things that they would never otherwise do, because they accept there's an authority out there greater than themselves. So this is a really good quote that I really like from Samuel Adams. So anytime you're ready, my friend.
No people will tamely surrender their liberties when knowledge is diffused and virtue preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. Samuel Adams.
So yeah, he was one of the founding fathers, I think, to memory, of the US Constitution. So you think of it, look at this picture, right? Like tipped over a rubbish bin. You know, he's got the girl lying down. You know, and look at all the people who have taken photos, right? That's outright debauchery right there. Like, this is not beings who actually understand their divine nature. These are beings who just drop into the lowest base sort of behaviors and think that's entertainment. That's what they call entertainment. Now, we've been like this, thinking this is just fun and natural, and you know what I mean? That's because we don't actually really truly understand how we're being mind controlled.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? Is if until you understand that, you will think that you're making your own choices and thinking this is just a natural part of life. This is why this stuff's a bit confronting. And not many people, I don't know how many people are really going to like having to face this, right? Because this is a picture of something at a sporting ground, I think, or the Melbourne Cup. I don't know.
I would say that'd be Melbourne Cup. That looks like the debauchery level of Melbourne Cup to me.
Yeah, and so I put some extra pictures up, so just to really highlight, you know, what is considered as culture, just so we can really see how we've sunk down, you know, and separated. Oops, I think you've jumped one. Didn't I give you the one with the Melbourne Cup pictures?
No, haven't got that.
Oh, bugger. Never mind. So the whole point of it was that if you think about Melbourne Cup or the Spring Racing Carnival, right, it's like you dress up in this really refined way, but then what do people end up turning out like afterwards, right? And you're also mixing people from different strata, right? But they all do the same thing. They all get drunk, right? And then you have a look at the waste and the trash. But what do they come to celebrate? Getting on top of an animal and whipping it. And then we bet on it. Like, how is that a divine expression of giving to life?
Yeah.
This is the real hard stuff to look at, guys. How did we even get into this space where we believe this is culture? This is an identity of who we are. Is this what our divine spirit has come to do? You know, and how do we get into that space where we accept this as just normal? Like, what's got to happen to us? Though this was done to really just make it a point of looking into what's in front of us that we don't actually look at with any real sort of desire to investigate from a spiritual place. You know, we just take it in face value, and that's just what's done. And this is the kind of work, the level that we need to do. If we want to move out of this slavery structure, we really need to look at the behaviours we participate in.
I found it.
Oh, there it is. You found it. Perfect. So yeah, you have a look at the guy with his pants down, right? And he's really proud of himself, right? And then you've got, you know, these girls that can barely walk straight, you know, and they would have started off looking really refined, and then you got the guy looking at him, he's totally passed out. He's gone to all this trouble. Then this guy's, you know, ripped his shirt out, and look at his pants, the state of his pants. I mean, you know, all just to watch these people go and whip an animal, right? Do you think that animal's having a good time?
Well,
Is anyone caring?
Yeah, I can tell you from experience at the Melbourne Cup that, and having only ever been to 4 of them in my life, because I'm not into horse racing in any way, but I can tell you that I never saw one horse at the Melbourne Cup. Spent too long lining up at the bar and talking to the girls, but that's how you wind up in that state.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. I've never seen levels of debauchery. Well, I have. Back in the day, Australia used to have B&S balls, bachelor and spinster balls. And I was lucky or unlucky enough to host 1 or 2 of those back in the day. I don't think you could hold one of those these days because of the liability insurance that you'd be needing. But my God, they were some pretty wild parties back in the day. And I'm sure plenty of our viewers and listeners would understand B&S balls. They were a hell of a lot of fun. But yeah, it wasn't the best example of how to go live in your life.
Well, they're fun in the sense that if you how am I going to put this? If you separate yourself from your actual divine state where you're actually giving to each other from the heart, then they can seem fun. But if you really truly understand that our divine purpose is to contribute to one another's well-being, not to actually destroy the temple that we were given for our spirits to actually drop into and utilize, right? If you understand that, then you probably wouldn't see it as fun. You'd see it from a different position. So it all comes from perspective. And this is just an invitation for people to look at their behaviors to realize just how much. I think we've missed one, Carl. Is it meant to be the 4 Tenets of Satanism? I reckon that's meant to be before this. So if you can find that one.
Okay. Let me
that one's kind of, because this is jumping. I think that's number 3 on the list, this one. So social Darwinism is number 3 on the 4 Tenets of Satanism. Because that's pretty much what I wanted to, you go, so on the list where it's got meant words, it'll be 4 Tenets of Satanism after that.
Yeah, sorry. It's just got a couple of different file types in there, and
this is really the center of how it's done, right? How we actually drop out of that divine space that we're in, and how it was, you know, cleverly crafted so we would actually do what our masters want us to do. Right?
Sure.
So the 4 Tenets of Satanism. Did you want to read them?
The 4 Tenets of Satanism: self-preservation, moral relativism, social Darwinism, and eugenics.
Now, we know about the eugenics one, right?
Yep.
It's happening.
Ready with that.
So, yeah, many people on this planet, you can read the next part if you like.
They're conditioned into a satanic controlling mindset without their knowing, and through that, mostly unconsciously, support and spread satanic ideology until they choose not to. So
the reason I'm putting this up, guys, is I'm actually drawing some attention to things that you might not ever even looked at. And so if you don't look at it, you can't know it. So if you don't recognize and acknowledge where you are right now, you can't go past those limits. So acknowledgement is the first part. So I'm just drawing it to your attention. Now, what you want to do with it is up to you, and I'm just bringing it out there. You know, and if it's confronting, there's probably a good reason for it. So self-preservation, what does that mean? It means that you just care about what you want and what you can get, regardless of the consequences to anyone else. Now, if you think about that, right, I'll use the tradies as a perfect example. Now, I think it was last year that the tradies all came together just leave it there if you can, Carl.
Sorry.
The tradies all came together and they started protesting about not getting the jabs, right? But what happened before that? Did they not just comply? So then, why choose somewhere down the track to stop complying when you complied this whole way? How does that work, right? You basically told your masters that you're good at complying. Did you think they were just going to go, oh, now that you decided you don't want to comply, no worries, we'll just stop? No, you showed them every step of the way, and they were just going to ramp it up now. This is what people didn't understand. They were actively engaging in one of the first tenet of Satanism, and that is, as long as I'm getting along, that's all that matters. I just need to get through my day. That's how they do it, guys. You know, and if you don't understand these 4 points, right, you're going to get used and abused, and you're going to be part of it. This is the thing that really needs to be understood. So I'm putting it out there, and it's going to be confronting, guys, and it needs to be. That we all engage in self-preservation because the structure makes sure we do, because we are dependent on it for our survival. So unless we, like as a collective, really can see it and can identify it, we're just going to carry on without knowing what we're doing. And so those protests were never going to work because the people didn't realize that they were actually consenting to it without even knowing it in every aspect of their behavior. So one small portion that was not going to count for anything. It just wasn't. And so this, and I'm not just saying only the traders, but I'm just using them as a classic example. But everyone does it in every level of their day lives without even realizing it. And it's about drawing it to your attention so you as an individual can take full responsibility for the choices you make. But if you're not aware of what you're doing, it's going to be pretty hard to do that. So do I have an actual slide about self-preservation?
There it be. You take after that, and I'm just digging up a few others that didn't double.
Alrighty, too easy. So it's, as you can see, it's about order following, right? So a lot of people follow orders because they don't want to lose their job. You know, that's a classic one. So you're suppressing your conscience when you're doing that, right? So that's denial or refusal of truth. And I've got FOMO. Usually it's because there's a fear of missing out. Like, you know, you don't want to lose your job, right? So you need to deny and refuse that which your conscience knows is not okay, the actions that you're participating in. Because otherwise you wouldn't feel those feelings of anxiety or depression or resistance, you know, or animosity or, you know, bitterness. You wouldn't be feeling things like that. You know, that's telling you that there's something not okay about what you're participating in. And then there's denial of personal responsibility, right? That's the most important one here, is when you accept there's an external authority, someone who's above you, and they are the ones who are responsible for what you're doing. That's how you get people to do the most wicked, unbearable, unimaginable things. That's it right there. That's the big one. And if you're denying personal responsibility, it's because you don't understand the interdependence of life. Because nothing happens in isolation. Everything we do affects someone else. It never just stays with us. So if you don't understand that, then it's quite easy for you to deny personal responsibility. And if you have a look at how many people just succumb to these jabs, right? How many people just lined up for the tests? You know, it was just phenomenal. You know, how many people social distance? How many people still, what's that thing with their hands when they constantly using the sanitizer? Yeah. That blows me away. I'm just like, it's still going on. Belief, you know, so there's a belief that the actions occur in isolation. See, that's a real issue, because Satanism, it's about separation. It's about getting you to believe that you're separate from everyone else. Because once you're separate from everyone else, what do? You've got selective disidentification. And once you disidentify with the other, that's when you do some horrific things to them. And that's what the police are there for. That's what everything here that I've listed is who the police are. Because they wouldn't do it otherwise. They are the initiators of violence because first, you know, they suppress their conscience. They're in fear of missing out of their jobs, right? They don't take personal responsibility. They deny the interdependence of life, right? And they don't believe that their actions, you know, can't stay in isolation, right? And they disidentify. They actually teach them us versus them. And they have their own special language for that, you see? And then when they're doing their jobs, so to speak, right, they've got to now convince themselves that what they're doing is a virtuous and moral thing. Somehow they've got to convince themselves of that, because otherwise they wouldn't keep doing it. And plus, obviously, they're of a select intellect too, so that helps it along as well.
Sure.
So just, when you think about it, right, how many police, right, will show up and they've got a piece of paper that says they have to serve these orders and stuff. They don't think about the consequences of the families they're breaking up about that, They just go, well, this is what my job is. That's what I do. And they don't sit there going, well, what's it like now when I separate this family, right, that the children aren't going to see their parents? What's that like for that child? What kind of suffering is that child going to go through? They don't sit there dropping into their body, right, and really allowing themselves to have that experience of the suffering of that child. And it's ongoing. And that child is going to grow up and they're going to carry that burden, those wounds and that trauma. And those police officers are not going to take responsibility for it because they're in denial of personal responsibility because they're following an order.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's how you get people to do the most unbelievable things, the unimaginable. And that's we're carrying out their orders. So we are carrying out the orders of Satanists because Satanists believe that they can be gods. So did you want to read this one?
Following orders means doing what you are told to do without judging for yourself whether or not the action you're being ordered to carry out is right or wrong. Being an unthinking drone. Yeah,
they're just flesh bots. That's it. That's all they are. They're just a flesh robot. And that's what you allow yourself to do, when you start following orders. Because it's like the Milgram experiment. They would turn around to the one who's giving them the orders and they say, do you take responsibility for this? And as soon as they said yes, they carried on and kept buzzing, kept zapping the guy and giving, or whoever's on the other side, kept administering the shocks. Because they're like, it's not on me.
Yeah. As long as they weren't going to be held responsible for it, they were happy to keep doing it.
Exactly. And that's what the police are.
If you haven't seen that, folks, I think you can check it out on YouTube, called the Milgram Experiment. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. It's a must-watch. I would actually recommend that for anyone.
Moral relativism versus freedom. True freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism. Moral relativism is the idea that there is no objective difference between acting in the service of life and actions that take from life, so that humanity may arbitrarily create or decide the definition of these actions for themselves.
So that was just another version of what I showed earlier, because this is a really, really important point. So I really wanted to reinforce it, that people need to understand what they're doing when they're obfuscating responsibility. Right? They're actually denying that which exists in nature, we're all bound to, and they're giving all the authority to a mental construct, and then being totally unconscious about the consequences of why their lives are in hell. Because you can't program your conscience. That's what you can't do. It's unprogrammable. So those people who suffer the consequences of their actions, they don't understand. It's because they're acting out of alignment with their conscience, because they've suppressed it. Because the conscience won't go away. It'll always come back. That's why if you see people who are really of low consciousness, they always buck up against those who will say things to them that they're very uncomfortable about. Because it's not the individual they're fighting with, it's their own conscience they're having the fight with.
I think I may have dropped this slide in again. Freedom and morality are directly proportional. We discussed that a little earlier.
Yes, that's true.
So, ignorance?
Yep.
No people will totally surrender their liberties. I think we did this earlier
yes,
too.
Yes, we did. That's right.
And then maybe I should be here at social consequence.
Just trying to look at my list here. Law of freedom, ignorance, so social Darwinism, the order follower, natural. Then that's natural law opposition.
All right, natural law opposition.
Oh, no, social Darwinism. You're right. Social Darwinism. That was correct.
That's why I was never a teacher, They wouldn't let me in charge. All right, survival of the fittest. We all know about that. Conflating the natural world, animal kingdom, with natural law. This is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Denial of conscience or consciousness. Sentient beings are competitive by nature versus adaptive to conditions. It perpetrates superior and inferior belief systems. Institutions set up to serve equity propagate slavery through singular messaging like education, sports, arts, and so on. That covers an awful lot of our life today, Fitz.
Yeah, like the one I wanted to really hone in on was the belief that we're naturally competitive. Like that one, people have swallowed hook, line, and sinker, and very few have challenged it, because the conditions of life are presented to us where we will adapt to the fact that if we want to survive, we need to compete. So people conflate that with that's how we naturally are. They don't understand the difference. And so that's what social Darwinism is. It wants to show you that the animal kingdom, right, how that operates, is how we are. That we don't have a conscience, we don't have a soul, we're just like those animals. We've just got these base drives and that's all we work off. They want you to believe that. This is how it's done. It's very subtle, but it's very effective. And if you were to ask, if you were to do a quiz with 100 people in the street, I'm willing to bet they would say people are naturally competitive and competition's good. They'll say it's healthy. That's what they'll say. And that's not true.
And even for those of us that aren't very good at competitive sports, we follow footy teams, motor race teams, that kind of thing. These are tribal endeavors, one side versus the other. So that's where the competitive nature is played out, even in those that aren't maybe of a sporting physique. It's been a long while since I had any kind of physique.
So on that one, right, if you have a look at the MCG, for example, right, and then you look at the Colosseum, you might see a bit of a connection there. It's a big circular, high walled, and it holds a lot of people. And there's gladiators in the center, hurting each other. And they call that, entertainment. And what are they allowed to do on that sports field, right? They're actually allowed to what? Show each other tenderness. They pat each other on the butt, they hug each other. Do you know what I mean? They're getting close, and they're not considered to be gay, right? But imagine if they took on that behavior.
Back in the good old days, they also did that with the greatest of respect, but they also punched each other's teeth out with their elbows and, did some, AFL and NRL were both very physical games, let's say. And I would argue that today they've both been watered down significantly from what we've been used to. And that's probably a good thing for the game. It's less injuries for those people involved. But it has taken the edge off the combat sport side of it. And I think both games are losing popularity because of particularly rugby league.
So it does not show you how well we've been programmed to seek that kind of brutality. Like cage fighting has exploded like mental, right? People come and they want that. They believe they want that, right? And then what message does that send to the male, right? So the male is now taught that they are, adored and adulated if they are like a beast to each other, right? If they operate in their most base drives. And then here's the best part, right? You're just supposed to just shut that off in your personal life. You're just not supposed to have that, because if you are, then you're violent.
Yeah.
But then it's like a self-contradictory rule that the whole society runs under, and they're not even conscious of it. But the best part of sport is why I love bringing it to attention is it's about winning and losing. Sure. Well, what does winning and losing promote? Inferior and superior, because the winner is what? Superior.
Yeah. Yep.
And that means you can only enjoy yourself. You can only get a rush of sort of self-worth if you what? Show someone else that they're inferior. You see how it's the same structure?
Yes, absolutely.
And so when you set up win or lose, you're going to have a very temporary outcome, because once you've won, well, then you don't keep it forever. It's time to win again, or it's time to lose, which one it is. But whoever loses, what do they get to swallow? They get to feel shame.
Yeah.
No one likes that. So then they will use any method they can to do what? To win. Well, this is an unnatural, this is not who we are. This was all constructed for us to behave in the ways that we are not actually like in reality. Because if we were really like that in reality, right, if we're really naturally competitive, if we really enjoyed causing harm to one another, well, then no one would actually stop and pick someone up if they fell over, just in their day life. Yeah. If you think about when you're walking next to someone and they trip over, the first thing that usually comes out of your mouth is, oh my goodness, are you okay? Well, that happens without you having any control over it. It's just an impulse. So
I think that happens with only today with people of a certain age. I think if there are younger people involved and say an older person were to trip around in front of them, they pull out their mobile phone and videotape it.
Well, that's another sign of good programming, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Another shit side of programming, if you ask me.
So I just wanted to bring that up, like to really think about it, guys, to start really looking into this, okay? Because if you don't look at this, right, you're going to miss the point of how rights works. So if you make it about your own personal version of reality, you're going to miss it, because that's moral relativism. Again, it's like looking at what's there, what's evidenced, guys.
So the order follower always bears more moral culpability than the order giver, because the order follower is the one who has actually performed the action, and in taking such action actually brought the resultant harm into physical manifestation. Now, order following is the pathway to every form of evil and chaos in our world. It should never be seen as a virtue by anyone who considers themselves a moral human being. Order followers have ultimately been personally responsible and morally culpable for every form of slavery and every single totalitarian regime that has ever existed on the face of the earth.
That's a pretty heavy statement, isn't it?
Wow, that really is.
So I took some of these slides from Mark Passio. So if anyone's interested, guys, it's really, really heavy content, but it's, in my opinion anyway, it's essential learning if you really want to liberate yourself from the slavery structure, because this is the essential stuff about really looking deep into yourself and the things you've done that sit outside your conscience, but then understanding how you're programmed into it. That's really essentially what's important. So I've done some videos on explaining how order following happens. We won't get time to do it tonight, but I will be putting it up on the Soundbite University Facebook page. So if anyone's interested, you can keep searching and eventually it'll show up there. And it really details how the process of order following, which is cult programming, how it really works. Now, if you wanted to look at yourself, like Mark Passio, if you want to look him up about cult programming and order following, you can just, his just goes for about 2 or 3 hours. So I've just condensed it into like, I don't know, about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. Yeah. So because of order following, this is what happens.
Living in opposition to natural law leads to control, enslavement, war, evolutionary stagnation, and extinction.
So I don't know. I reckon that's pretty self-explanatory. What do you reckon?
I don't think there's too much you need to go into with that.
Because we're pretty much there, haven't we? We're right on that hub of extinction.
Oh, word, we are. We're right.
Because we just don't understand natural law.
Now, armies are created to protect an established system, not the people. In the future, an educated humanity will not stand for war. That's from Jacques Fresco.
So I just wanted to introduce Jacques Fresco to anyone who doesn't know about him. So he was trying to really show people there's another way to live free from money in our natural state. So he was creating structures that could show people that we are capable of actually living together harmoniously without the need of money and to our needs, right? And what he created was what's called a resource-based economy. So if you guys want to look him up and type up resource-based economy, and then there's another movement called the Zeitgeist movement. They were like the, I guess you would say they were the marketing arm that were working with Jacques Fresco. So those two groups work synchronized with each other, and they were really enlightening people on how the whole structure has been set up so we are going down this path of absolute concentrated power, and we're not going to be able to get out of it until we understand some fundamental elements of how we're controlled. So that's why I just wanted to bring this guy up, and I think there's videos coming next about some of the things he said.
So you should be seeing that.
None, they tell you at least we're civilized. No way. It's an ongoing process. A civilized country would not have war, crime, prisons, police. All those are byproducts of an insufficient culture. An insufficient culture makes laws.
So, yeah, it was a bit soft, but it was, I could hear it enough. But that was really, really important, that statement, guys. So I thoroughly recommend that you watch this again and listen to what he said. Because he said an insufficient culture creates creates laws.
Just let me see if I can share this screen again. It should, in theory, pop up, but it's not. Let me just turn up the sound a tad here.
None, they tell you at least we're civilized. No way. It's an ongoing process. A civilized country would not have war, crime, prisons, police. All those are byproducts of an insufficient culture. An insufficient culture makes laws.
Yeah, so I'm just reading this comment here by Oslander Info. It says there is a difference between a civilian following orders or a soldier following orders. No, there isn't, my friend. It means you haven't understood anything that's actually been said here. There is not. If you have a conscience, there's no difference. One is doing a job, so that doesn't justify anything. Yet civilians do not have to do anything politicians say. No, they don't. The army doesn't need to either, because we don't need an army. That was just an invention. Like, it's right here. Armies are there to protect an established system. So no one forces you to enlist in one. They create the conditions so that it makes it look like it's enticing. If you were to actually interview how many people have gone into the army and really ask them why they went, it was because they were lost. They were looking for a family. They were broken. That's the structure that does that. They really got to think about what you guys take on as truths, guys. And start asking some people that have gone into the army their true reasoning for it. Because I have. And that's a very consistent answer. And in America, right, if you're African-American or Latino and you want to actually go to university, the only way you're going to be able to do it is to go into the army. It's the only way. So they've stitched it up, guys. They need their expendables. It ain't going to be the politicians, kids. So you really need to start looking into how this is done, guys. Okay, it's not what you think it is.
So I'll have a go at trying to play the next grab I have here. Let's just see if I can make that work.
All man-made laws, I should say most of them, are worthless. And laws are attempts made to control human behavior. The only laws that really count is natural law. As long as you have a population that coincides with the carrying capacity of the earth, you'll be able to get on. As long as you use science and technology and make all its findings available without patents, free of charge to all the nations of the world. When you own patents on nutrition, drugs, medical devices, you hurt people.
Wow.
So yeah, that's really, really solid things to really look into, guys, right? I think Oslander Info, you said I haven't been in uniform. That's correct, because I've got a conscience, and I actually like to follow my conscience. That's why uniform, you think about the word uniform, one form. Have a real good think about that.
It's important to point out that you're not actually dissing people in the armed services here.
No, I'm not. I'm letting them know what's happened to them.
Yeah.
And to really, they need to look in deep, right, as to why they would have went there in the first place. It might seem like a noble pursuit or virtuous, but why do we need to even pick up a military weapon in the first place? Because it only has one purpose. So how did that system come about, where we believe that we need to hurt each other and defend each other from each other? We're one solitary consciousness. We're just different expressions of that one consciousness. So why would we ever want to harm each other? That's a setup, right? That's a system that's been put in place. That's the whole mind control structure. That's what I'm getting at.
There could be an argument put forward that says man has been fighting man since the Neanderthals formed tribes and were hunting dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, I mean, the best part of that is that they were Neanderthals, right? So their brains weren't that highly developed. So that's pretty good. You know, I totally agree with that.
But the trait started then. Something that's come through with evolution.
Hard to know. I mean, it's really hard to know because, you know, as you go now, history, people are questioning, right, that what's true and what's not. So we don't really know. How do we verify that? Because who's been feeding it to us too?
Very true.
It's really difficult to be able to now discern what's actually verifiable and what's just been fabricated and manufactured. So that's the other side of it, right? If we're going to say that some parts of history we don't accept, then how do we know what's actually acceptable and what's not? Where's the real way to discover that?
Yep, you're right.
So that's the other side of it. So we don't know.
Right. Let's play Jacques' last grab here.
So the future, every human being will live very well. I'm not talking about a handout society. Nothing's too far out. Anything a person can conceive of can be built. So you have to, instead of making soldiers, which are killing machines. I hope I'm getting to a lot of soldiers. They are killing machines. We would educate soldiers to become problem solvers, send them to universities free of charge, so they learn how to solve problems rather than kill. When you kill, you build hatred for the future. Problem will go on and on and on until the earth is declared common heritage. And all the artificial boundaries that separate people will be dissolved. And when all people are brought up together, then you have the brotherhood of humanity.
That's where we're aiming for.
Yeah, and so that's why we can't have order followers. See what he said about the armies?
Yeah.
The soldiers would no longer be for that purpose. They'd be problem solvers. Now imagine that.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, some would argue that they are now, but not the people around Lismore, where the army took, what was it, a week or two to get into Lismore and help, and then when they helped, they really only helped while the television cameras were around. I think that's probably being a little bit dismissive, but certainly their help is on their level, I suppose, isn't it? So,
yeah, I mean, that guy that you interviewed a while back, he was a tradie, and he said politicians don't fix things, tradies do. Well, that's kind of that mentality, that if you're capable and organized, what are the problems you can solve? Because the one thing about the military is it's capable and organized. Yeah. So imagine if it was put to the use of actually, contributing to the well-being of people as opposed to, having weapons to harm each other.
Yeah. So, Fitz, we're about 3 minutes off our hour, and we have about 25 slides to go.
Yeah, so probably good to wrap it up here because we'll just go on forever. Okay, so clearly we're only partway through rights. We've got natural law versus legal coming up. We've got a bit more on common law versus legal. What in government is illegal, or are governments and how governments are illegal, more on rights, more on rule of contract, law of constables, which I'm really looking forward to getting deeply into again. I've had a lot of conversations with people about how our police have evolved from the constable. People are very interested to learn the history of policing, and when they discover the change from constable to police, they're quite horrified. So that's going to be another nice additive, I think, mate. Yeah, I mean, we already have done it. If you remember, we did one specifically on police and constables. So if people did want to do a little bit of background learning, it's already up on the Nun 2K. It'll be about constables. So if you just guys want to search through the Nun 2K page, you will see that there's already one up there. But yeah, we can definitely go over that again because there's always more to add.
There's a question before we started tonight from Meta Yarb 2 or Yarby. Has anyone in the chat been through the status correction process, taking power of attorney back from the corporations? And I had one reply typed up, and then I thought, no, won't send that. I'll let you answer this. So this is something a bit about, this process.
Yeah, look, it can be something some people might get a bit of success with, but if you guys look at Romney Stewart and what's happened to him, because he's done that, right? So he's been arrested, taken into custody, had to face the magistrate, because he didn't have his car registered, etc., by the system. By the time he got out, right, they crushed his car. So now he gets around, and that happened 3 times, and now he gets around the push bike. So he's basically living in people's lounge rooms, him and his family. So, it's something that, if you want to get out, you have to have a pretty good contingency plan for how you're going to survive outside of the system. But all that's going to do, right, is it's going to give you access out, but then everyone else is still in. So, but the system is still in play. And if we don't there's only one method, right, that I'm aware of, and if anyone else that knows a different one, I'd love you to come forward and show it, because I'm more than happy to see what else is out there. And I haven't discovered it. And there's only one system that I am aware of by how we can do it. And we need to raise our consciousness to understand what government is, what rights is, who we are, and how we take that which is innate in us and belongs to us by nature and how we express it. And there is a mechanism that's enshrined, and it's in Magna Carta 1215. I don't know about it existing anywhere else. And that's why we're here, guys, to educate you so you can now be stimulated to want to learn this for yourself. So not just take our word for it, right? Try and do some research, right? Because if you're just going to be spoon-fed this stuff, it's going to mean nothing. This just needs to be a stimulant for you to go and find it out for yourselves. Because if you're your own independent being, right? If you are above the control or rulership of another, then the responsibility is on you. Otherwise, you're just doing what everyone else is doing, and that's just following other people. So this is how you show your true light, that you shine. You know, you have your capacity for self-determination. Well, how are you going to express it? Are you just going to go and argue with others, or are you going to start learning? You know, and then applying your knowledge, because until you apply that which you know, it's the same as if you didn't learn it. So this is what it requires, guys. So, you know, instead of arguing with us, how about you guys kind of look into what you can actually learn, and then let it drop in your body, and then see how that guides you, right? Because you have a conscience, and if your conscience doesn't argue with it, there's a good chance it's got something to it. But yeah, so yeah, that method you can try out. If it goes somewhere, great. But if you leave it there and you don't actually act in the service of everyone's freedom, then that's all about self-preservation. And that was one of the 4 tenets of Satanism. So this is another question, you know, that you need to ask yourselves if you just think that's as far as you need to go.
Adam Huglow says he's the Constable of Nottingham. So, Adam, go back and have a look at the Magna Carta 1215 lesson we did just on constables, and you'll learn where you came from. And being in Nottingham, you're at the heart of it, brother. That's where it all happened. Might be being a bit cruel there. Just having a bit of a glance through some of the questions that we've got left here tonight, or if there are any. A lot of great statements. Seems to be some great chat happening there tonight too. Guantanamo Bay set for an upgrade to new skyscrapers twice the size of the Twin Towers. I like that. I don't think they need to go and build too much more accommodation. From what I hear, the cells aren't long-term use. They're only in for a couple of weeks, and then they're vacated for the next person. So they might be looking for better ground to bury bodies, or more ground to bury bodies, or just taking the bodies to bury at sea by now, because they'll be starting to pile up. I've got a bit of a feeling. So, oh no, Adam's in Australia. Well done. Good on you, Adam. All right, good. So just a bit of a note for tomorrow night, folks. Ricardo Bossi back in at 7:30 for his regular Tuesday night Nothing But the Truth session. And I am very excited about Wednesday night. For a long time, we've been talking about Project Matilda, and I've been telling you that it is an uncensored space where we will be able to get on and tell you everything that we want you to know. That includes the stuff that maybe some of you don't want to see or hear. And so I want to be very clear, folks, with what's going to happen on Wednesday night. I'm going to be speaking.
I think we've lost you, Carl.
Oh, sorry, I'm back. There you go. Pardon me. I'm going to be speaking with a guy on Wednesday night called Patriot 101. Now, if you've got Telegram, go and search out his Telegram channel. He's got brilliant intel, and he has access to some of the files and videos that people are clamoring to see. Now, we're going to really test Project Matilda on Wednesday night, both, I think, in numbers when we start the live stream there at 7:30 on Wednesday night. But we're also going to test them for the content, because we will show you what's happening under Australia in the tunnels and the dumbs here. And there are a lot of them. So just be prepared. We won't be doing it on this channel for obvious reasons, but we will come on at about 7:15 on Wednesday night and just do a little bit of a chat, give you an idea of what's coming up over on Project Matilda. But like I say, we just simply can't do it on this channel because, well, we won't be here. And if we do disappear on this channel, that's where you'll find us at Project Matilda. I think YouTube will probably make life hard again. So the Telegram channel is Patriot 101 or 101. And if you go and check out his channel, have a look at some of the intel that he's got coming through there, you'll get a very good idea of what's coming up. And he's thankfully going to become a regular. So we will talk everything. We've had questions in the past about, are we going to talk about Antarctica, and are we going to talk about this or that? And yes, we're going to talk about all that. And we've been down a few rabbit holes, but the warning is there, folks. We won't play things in this show that will upset you, but we will give you links that you can choose to go and look at. And once you've seen them, you can't unsee them or unhear them. So you need to be very aware that some of the things you see are very, very disturbing. Very, very disturbing. And you want to think long and hard before you click on those links. It depends what sort of a person you are. So that warning has to be given. Fitz, I'm really looking forward to that show, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity that Project Matilda are going to afford us all to have a place where we can actually speak in uncensored freedom. It's going to be great. So if you haven't already done so, folks, projectmatilda.com, go and register, and then come and find me either as Carl or as Ozai, and check out the channel there. We're going to be uploading all of this stuff, of course, but our first live and uncensored show happening 7:30 Wednesday night with Patriot 101. Look forward to seeing you all there. I don't have any further news about the Cossack. Freely, yeah, okay. Email me freely at voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com. Voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com. I'll see what I can do to get you involved. And thank you to everybody who's been watching. It's been spectacular. It's nice to see we've got over 150 folks tonight, Fitz, who've been enjoying the program, and I'm seeing lots of great comments just like that one. People are learning new things every night, and that's all we're aiming to do, folks. We're just trying to give you a little bit of information and give you a direction where you can head off and go and find the detail yourself. Make sure we don't expect you to believe us. We hope you go off and test us. That's what this is all about, isn't it, Fitz?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is about your learning, not about sitting there listening to us. It's your growth we're interested in, but you've got to get up and do a bit of the growing. It's not all about listening. So, we're looking forward to being able to help you more with that. And we've got a lot more lessons to come. I think you said, Fitz, when we originally started talking about rights, then you said, it might be 2, possibly 3 lessons. Now we're talking 4, maybe 5. Yes, Bill, looking into this, Tartaria, I'm not even sure if that's how you say it, right? Yes, looking into that. And hopefully we'll have something on that by the end of the week. And nice to see, lots of people, as I say, Fitz, seem to be enjoying the show. So thank you very much to everybody who's poked their heads in tonight. We seem to have lost a few of the trolls, which has been good. And,
Yes.
And I'm disappointed because, you know me, I don't mind trolls. That
was one thing we were having a bit of a joke about, that we'd like to have a show specifically for the trolls. Like Trollbox, I think was the idea, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of Gogglebox, it's Trollbox, and we just have it out with the trolls and just have a good time with it. So that could be something that comes up, guys.
Yeah, we might give it a go. I'll just post the link up one night. We can have 12 people in here at a time. We'll have a free for all. Very happy to have questions, and we might do that one night, Fitz. We'll just post the link up openly, and people can pop in and join us and ask questions live. Love to have that happen too. Yep. So, but we'll try and get a little bit more of the party happening. So yes, the ball on Saturday night was really, really good. Lindsay, lovely man, spent a wonderful evening at the Freedom Fighters Ball at the Gold Coast on Saturday night at the Southport Golf Club, and as a guest of Lindsay Temple, who was the A1 candidate for Queensland Senate in the last election. Lindsay and his lovely wife Mary, we had a wonderful, wonderful evening. A lot of great people there, including Senator Malcolm Roberts, who has agreed to come and have a bit of a chat with me, possibly this week. And that'll be an interesting chat. I'm looking forward to that. Senator Jared Rennick was there as well. He apparently has also agreed to have a bit of a chat. I've got to thank Ben Atkinson, who's been sort of working with me to try and arrange some of these. When I say working with me, I mean I just take him to places and set him loose. He's very good, but he's really been a great help to me in the last, few months, if I'm honest. So thanks to Ben, and hopefully some of his fruits will come to bear later this week, and we'll have some pretty cool interviews lined up very soon. Fitz, once again, love your work.
It's a pleasure. Thanks everyone who's tuned in. Hopefully there was something for you to actually stimulate your own learning journey. That's all we're here to do, guys. We're not here to tell you what's true or what's not true. We're just here to show you how it's done. If you want to believe it, that's up to you. If you don't, that's fine as well. But it's got to come from you. We're just planting some flags. That's all we're doing.
Yep, all good. And as for blackouts in Queensland, haven't heard anything about it yet. It is bloody cold. People have probably got their heaters on, but blackouts in Queensland tend to happen in summer when everybody's air conditioning and fridges are turned up flat out, so not necessarily in winter. Although that does happen in winter. We'll just have to see how many coal-fired power stations keep running, won't we? I believe in Victoria that's going to be a bit of a problem because they're going to shut down, at least in part, Victoria's largest coal-fired power station in the next few weeks. That's going to make it very interesting for the load in Victoria, and the fact that the Victorians are supplying power to South Australia as well. That's probably going to put a bit of a pressure on Mr. Tesla's battery farm out the back of Whyalla. So that'll be something to keep an eye on for the next little while as well, I would say. Just between you, me, and the gatepost. All right, Fitz, love your work. Back again with part
6. We'll be up to 6.
Yeah, lesson 6, but part 4 of rights.
So, no, with 3. We're number 3 of rights. Yeah.
I'm glad one of us is keeping track.
You're talking about Tartaria, that's why.
Yeah, I know, and I do have to go and do a bit of study on that. It does seem to be a very, very
it's widely popular.
Amazing subject. Yes, amazing subject. And I'm not going to get into talking about it because I'm going to get myself banned here again already. Exactly. I only got one YouTube channel left, so I've got to be good, all right?
Yeah.
So yes, folks, if you don't happen to see anything new pop up on your YouTube channel, find us at Project Matilda, because that's where we'll be, because YouTube have said I've been a naughty boy again. Or at least Ricardo has been. He's the one who got me knocked off the other 2 channels last week. So I don't know. We'll see what happens this week. It'll all be fun. All right, Fitz, look forward to next Monday night, as always.
All right, it's a pleasure, my friend. We'll see everyone next week if you're willing to come join us.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks again, folks, for coming and joining us and learning about Magna Carta 1215. It's only through knowledge that we are going to regain our control and be able to get these bastards that have been doing this to us for so long. So thank you again for coming along and being willing at least to listen and maybe learn a bit and join us on this journey. It's really important that you come along with us. Otherwise, we're all buggered.